Hey, welcome to another episode of Your Faith and Health Community. I'm your host, Pastor Jackie Jackson. And as always, on behalf of myself, as well as our producer, Anita Alexander, we want to thank you for taking out time from your busy day to spend with us. And hopefully we'll give you some information that will help with your quality of life. And you know, as the scripture says that my people perish for lack of knowledge or lack of information. So we want to make sure that you have some information to go through your day. Now, before we get started, as you know, I believe we have a few days left in order for you to get enrolled in health insurance, either through the through the marketplace, because open enrollment will be closed, I believe, by the end of this week. So if you have not gotten insured yet, if you haven't gotten your insurance, go to www.healthcare.gov, not Cub, but .gov, and try to get enrolled. Look at the policies. There are a number of plans for you to choose from. Most of them will include dental and vision. All of them will include emergency rooms, doctor's visits, prescriptions. Pre-existing conditions are not an issue, thank God, although we know that they were tried to be stopped, but you still have that. So get enrolled. And remember, if you're single and your income is $16,223 or less a year, that makes you eligible for Medicaid. If you're a family of four, and your annual income combined or from just one individual is $44,550 or less a year, that makes your whole family eligible for Medicaid. The thing about Medicaid is it's going to cover your dental, your vision, your medical, emergency room visits, doctor's visits, prescriptions, pretty much everything. Not pretty much, actually everything. Glasses, anything that you need. So just keep in mind, get enrolled, get some health care, have a peace of mind. Because I'm telling you, it only takes one hospital stay that could cause you to end up in bankruptcy. In fact, bankruptcy, medical bills are one of the #1 leading causes for bankruptcy in America. I'm not going to keep pushing that. You've heard me do it for 3 years now, so you should know to get enrolled. Just do it. Have a peace of mind. I'm also awesomely happy about today. We have two people here. They're my co-workers. Well, one is my boss, and the other one is my co-worker. But you know Pastor Peterson Mingle, who is the pastor of Christ Temple that is on Durrell in Evanston. Awesome church. If you're looking for a church home, if you want to go where there's some good music, most importantly, if you want to go where there's some good word being broken down and telling you what thus says the Lord, pay a visit to Christ Temple on Sunday mornings. Their services at 10 o'clock. I believe at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. Come out, hear Pastor Mingo. You might even get a chance to hear Elder Tony, which let me introduce Elder Tony Hill, who is a co-worker, who's my brother as well. Maybe not from the same mother, but he is definitely my brother, who is a part of the Community Outreach Advocates. You've met people like Duran and Valerie. Now you get a chance to meet Elder Tony. But we're not here to talk about the outreach team. We're not here to talk about church, but I wanted to make sure you knew where Pastor Mingo and Elder Tony, who is also a member of Christ Temple, because if you're looking for, I just got to say this again for some reason, if you're looking for a church home, if you're looking somewhere where you can go and not play church, if you're looking for somewhere where the Bible is going to get broken down in a way that you can understand and give you the information that you need so that you can live this life that Christ has given you. I've visited Christ Temple on a number of occasions. I'm telling you, the word is there. The word of God is there. And every day you walk into that place, God's going to meet you right there. And he's going to do it in his spirit and through his set man of God, Pastor Mingo. But we're here today to talk about the Southern Christian Leadership, or better known as, and I probably said it wrong, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You probably know it as the SCLC. And so Pastor Mingo, who is the vice president, and if you're not familiar, Pastor Fred Shuttlesworth, who is also a civil rights icon, is the one who started it.
He along with Dr. King.
He's the one along with Dr. King and Dr. Abernathy, but I think he's the one responsible for the chapter being here in the city. In fact, it is the Fred Shuttlesworth chapter here in Cincinnati. So we're going to talk about the SCLC, and Pastor Mingo is going to give us some information. So what is the SCLC?
Well, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference is basically a civil rights organization. It came about in 1957 in the midst of the civil rights struggle. Dr. Abernathy, Dr. King, and Dr. Shuttlesworth formed the organization to give blacks basically a voice. Voting rights, housing, education, the whole 9 yards. There were things that were going on in the South that were basically there in place to keep us as a people down. And so Dr. Shuttlesworth, pastored in Birmingham, and basically very much active in the civil rights movement, invited Dr. Abernathy and Dr. King down, and they strategized and they came up with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference as a vehicle to fight racism and disparities that were going on in the South at that time. Since then, it's still a premier civil rights organization. The NAACP does an outstanding job, and many times we walk hand in hand with them in addressing some of the things they need to be addressed for civil rights issues. Because our people, even though we've made great strides, we still have a lot of work to do.
Okay, and I was looking here because I wanted to talk about you, because you mentioned the leadership, and I fumbled through who started it, but there seems to be some very prestigious names here when you go down the list of the former presidents, and I guess these were the national presidents.
Oh yes, definitely.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which I think everyone knows, Ralph Abernathy,
Lowry.
Joseph Lowry, even Martin Luther King III. And then our own here in Cincinnati, Fred Shuttlesworth, Charles Steele Jr., and I'm not familiar, who was Charles? Do you remember who Charles Steele Jr. was?
Charles Steele was an advocate basically down in, I believe, Louisiana and Georgia.
Okay, and then Howard W. was that Creasy Jr.? And then, now is Dr. Steele Jr. still the current national president?
Right now he is, yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
All right, so I just kind of wanted to go down who the leadership. Now let's talk about the leadership here in Cincinnati. Who's leading the Cincinnati chapter?
Sister Edith Throer is the president of the Cincinnati chapter. Most of you may remember Edith. She was also at one time president of the NAACP chapter here in Cincinnati. An outstanding young lady, dedicated, devoted, highly spiritual, highly intellectual, and with a drive that you wouldn't believe as she works towards equality for us in the city of Cincinnati.
Okay, and so the organization, and I'd like to say that I'm like really a genius and I got all this stored in my head, but I'm looking at it here. And the organization was founded actually on January 10th. So you're coming up on an anniversary.
Yes.
Right? January 10th of 1957, following the Montgomery bus boycott victory.
Yes.
So are you getting ready for some celebration? And that would be what, 53? No, 60?
62 years.
62 years.
62 years.
Yeah, I went to performing arts. We didn't have to know that.
Okay.
That's a joke. Right. Yeah. But so you're getting ready for your 62nd anniversary. Do you have something big planned?
Basically, whatever we have planned, we're going to incorporate it with the program that we're having on the 1st of January, the Emancipation Proclamation Program. That's going to be held January the 1st at Greater New Light, the church founded by Dr. Shuttlesworth on North Crescent with North Shuttlesworth in Avondale. The service is going to begin at 11 a.m. And we're asking that all who come, especially ministers who come, to bring your robes. For there will be a processional at the beginning of the service as we recognize all the organizations and all the churches that are going to be basically participating. The year of 2019 holds a lot of significance for African Americans. For it was 400 years ago in 1619 that the first African Americans were brought to America. And so this right here, 400 years. You know, God deals a lot in 40s, and you know, children of Israel were basically in bondage for 400 years. And we have been here for 400 years. And so I expect great things, others expect great things that are going to be happening next year as a result of not only the prophecies, but as a result of the hard work and the movement of the SCLC along with the NAACP and other civil rights organizations, basically as we celebrate. And some say there's not much to celebrate, that we were forcibly brought here, but that's not the case. The first African Americans who were brought here were not brought here by force. And so we have a tradition, we basically have a stake in this country. We are sure partners in everything that goes on here. Matter of fact, we might as well say we built this country. You know, and we are the ones who basically are not benefiting from what we built. So we have to just come out, join hand in hand, and celebrate on this great occasion on the 1st of January, 11 a.m. at the Greater New Light Baptist Church on Shuttlesworth Drive in Avondale.
And that's going to be January 1st.
January
At
1st.
what time?
11 a.m.
At 11 a.m. And I'm sure that Anita will get that information up. So later on it'll appear so that you can get out and join. Said that if you're a minister and you're coming, they're asking that you bring your robe. Now, one thing I know about you, Pastor Mingle, from working with you is that you pretty much are a historian about a little bit of everything, because when you think about the stuff that we hear Pastor Mingle, and not only brings it up after he says it, then he goes on and he pulls it up for you so that you can see that it's not that it's not just something that he's saying. So I want to ask a question with the Christian leadership with the Christian Leadership Conference. There was also a civil rights organization called SNCC, right? And I want to ask, because I know that the leadership conference, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, is still going on. I know SNCC was ceased to exist around '76, but I want to know, there was a comment or something that SNCC had, and I think there was an issue where, I don't want to call it an issue, I hate to say it that way, but I guess with the conference, here it was, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference is an African American. That's not it. I had it there. Anyway, where there was, I guess, some issue where SNCC and the conference wasn't necessarily meeting because there was a feel by SNCC that it was not actually speaking to the younger members that were meeting. And I hate that I don't have it. I do have it. I just can't find out where it is. But that there was an issue. Here it is, that SNCC, which was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was a civil rights group formed to give younger blacks, more of a voice in the civil rights movement. And there was a concern by SNCC that the SCLC, led by Martin Luther King Jr., was out of touch with younger blacks who wanted the movement to make faster progress. And that's November 12th. Well, let's skip that out. Yep. But so where, even though SNCC doesn't exist, now with the organization lasting so long, does it give a voice or lend a voice to the younger blacks or African Americans that would be involved in the movement, or that you would look to bring into the organization?
Half of the membership of the Fred Shuttlesworth chapter are under the age of 20. And so that right there should show that there is a youth movement. Sometimes ideas are before their time, ahead of their time, and people have to have patience for things to work. Someone said that big ships turn slow, but they do turn. And as a result of our patience, the result of us looking at what we have to do, basically breaking it down, dissecting, and working it instead of rushing in. Sometimes we rush in and we suffer consequences. But the SCLC has been very patient about moving youth into the premier positions in the organization. And the voice that the youth have now is louder than any other organization of this kind in the country.
So I like the phrase "big ships turn slowly." Sounds like a naval reference.
No,
but
it does. Sometimes Marines get tired of waiting on the ships to turn.
Yeah, don't we all? But I just kind of want to jump. So that's pretty interesting. I wanted to bring that up because, a lot of people. I'm 58, so even when SNCC was around, by the time it was getting into its demise, obviously, I was a little bit older, a teenager, because I think it was around '76 where, because of J. Edgar Hoover right. and the FBI and their counterintelligence, to kind of discredit not just SNCC, but the Christian Southern right. leadership, and every other organization dealing with civil rights, the Black Panthers, the Black Power movement, that they got involved with that. But I just kind of wanted to mention it for people who may think about it, who may do some research, and I hope that you will go out and do some research, and not just do some research, but get involved, because you do want more people to join.
Oh yes,
you
definitely.
need more people involved.
Because the struggle still goes on, and we need to be basically conscious of that. The situation that we have now in Washington and all over this country should have woke a lot of people up to the fact that the struggle is not yet over. There are some mindsets that have to be changed. There's a lot of work to be done in government, as a matter of fact, when they feel that basically people who came into this country as immigrants should not be allowed in. They have to realize that at one time or another, I believe 90% of the population of the United States came from immigrants. And so it's all filled up. And there are people who are basically looking at our way of life here, and we complain a lot about what we do, our suffering, the things we don't have and don't have any opportunity to get. But then you find there are people in other parts of this world, especially around the Caribbean, who are basically on rafts that they are in danger of sinking, losing their lives just to get here.
Just to
get here, to set their feet on these grounds. And so we're not really appreciative of what we have. We should have a whole lot more, but as I said, big ships do turn slow, and things are turning in our favor. I do believe that the present administration has made us take a couple of steps backwards, but only that we might be able to see the things more clearly that we need to do. And the next step forward is going to be a giant step, when we'll be able to achieve things that we've only ever dreamed about in the past, and our people would benefit. Right now, it's a good time for any young African American to go to college, pursue his dreams, because things are opening up to the point that it's right there for us, and all we have to do is move forward. If we can look at those immigrants, as we might call them, and we're all immigrants, but the ones that are coming to the country now, they're coming with vision, they're coming with ideas, they're coming to work, they're showing camaraderie, they're showing family values, because when they get here, a lot of them may get an apartment and 20 people stay in one apartment. They work and then they can get another apartment. And then they work, then they get another apartment. And then they work and they get another apartment. Then they start buying houses.
Buying houses.
Okay? 3 families in one house. Then they buy another house. Then they buy another house. And those are nothing but, that's family values right there. And we get back to the point that we're family again, and not begrudging what someone else has, and not being afraid to allow brother or sister to come live with us because it's an inconvenience. You know, when we start taking better care of our seniors, and the Latinos can teach us a lesson on that also, then we can be family again. And they're coming, they're showing us some family values. If we go down basically to the Justice Center, we see a lot of what you might call, born American down there. In other words, those who were born in this country. Very seldom do you see those who are not citizens. Okay, very seldom.
That's true.
Very seldom.
That is actually, regardless of what current people would like to make the point, you're absolutely right. If you sit in court, if you go and sit in court all day, you will see more American-born than you will someone who is an illegal or
Exactly.
an immigrant. And so you're right. And I want to ask about, because you brought up the current temperature that we are in, especially coming off of the midterm elections, and with even North Carolina still going through the voter suppression or voter fraud issues. So I want to talk about that and the connection of the SCLC and the Selma voting rights movement in Montgomery. But before I do that, I want to switch over here to Elder Tony Hill, who is the chaplain. One of the chaplains, or are you the chaplain? One of the chaplains for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about being the chaplain. So what does that mean? You're the chaplain for, I know what a chaplain is, and I'm sure most people do, but what does that mean in your current position of being the chaplain for the SCLC?
It's just a great honor, first of all, to be a part of the organization. I had a unique opportunity because Greater New Light was actually my first church, my first home church. I started out there. He was my original pastor. So just seeing what he went through, how he did it, and then graduating to meeting Pastor Mingo and learning and just continuing to learn and just kind of following their footsteps. So just to play my part, whether it be the chaplain, which I happen to be, or would have been a janitor, just to be a part of something that's bigger than myself is just a great and humbling opportunity.
But as a chaplain, right? So in the organization, as a chaplain, what are some of the things you're called on to do?
Provide some sort of spiritual assistance, whether that be opening up in prayer, whether it be providing some sort of spiritual connection with anyone that comes in to contact with us, whether it's going out providing some kind of spiritual assistance to those in need.
And how long have you been one of the chaplains there?
A year,
Okay,
roughly
so
a year.
you're a newer chaplain.
Yes, sir.
All right. And is this an obviously you're a part of the organization, so I guess it's kind of a crazy question to say, is it an organization? But, is there an appeal you want to make to, because I don't think there's any organization that's saying, we have too many members, please stop joining, right?
No, we definitely want to appeal. And that question you started out in the beginning about the youth. The great thing about this particular chapter of the SCLC, all those that's in current leadership are constantly teaching, giving back to the youth. We try to get back into the communities to let the younger people know that your voice is accessible. You have a voice, but then having it is just not enough. Now you need to use it. So we teach people how to use their platforms, how to use what God has already given them, and it starts with that voice. So we tell them, first you have to get out to come and vote. Now, once you vote, that's not the end of it, and it's definitely not a older person per se situation, because life is going to continue on and life is going to continue to happen. So once things happen for the older generation, there's a trickle-down effect. So we try to teach everybody there's always somebody behind you, so we want to keep that train going so that the next generation can have things a little bit better than we did.
Okay, so, and that's good. I'm glad you doubled back to the youth, and even going back to where I even brought up SNCC, because I think that sometimes with our youth, and actually, unfortunately, sometimes, you're more a progressive thinker in terms of being older leadership. Not calling you old, but you're what, 69?
Yes.
So, and look good for 69.
Thank you.
I'm 14, so I probably look bad for 14. But you're probably a more progressive thinker in terms of a more seasoned leadership, because sometimes when you have a more seasoned leadership, that there is sometimes a little bit of that kind of space between younger individuals that may be kind of walking the same path, and because of that gap, they're going to miss out on information. Because I'm hearing stories and hearing you talk. You were in Avondale and the West End and areas in the 60s when the civil rights movement was really flowing. I guess the 50s, maybe a part of the 50s, not much, right? But still, you were still kind of young then, but still out there in the midst. So there's a lot of information that you can share with young people to help guide them in their quest to fight for social justice, right? So, and that's why I kind of brought up SNCC, to say that whereas a point that would have been where that divide, or that, what they call it, the generational gap, if we can go back to the 70s, I think that was where they used that term, that a lot of young people may have missed out on what a seasoned elder could give, but the same is that a seasoned elder probably missed out on the energy and the ideas that the younger people in the movement can bring. So now what's really beautiful is that there's a movement that encompasses both, and everybody can get in and fight together, because whether you like it or not, we have a battle ahead of us. And if you didn't realize it before the midterms, or put it away, if you didn't realize it before November of 2016, then you have to definitely know it now. Which, like I said, I wanted to double back, or not double back, I actually wanted to go back and talk about the Selma voting rights and the march to Montgomery, because the SCLC played a major part in that. So can we talk a little bit about that, or you share something on that with us?
Well, basically, all of the roadblocks they were putting, and I'm not talking about physical roadblocks, I'm talking about legislative roadblocks, so that we were not allowed to vote. The average voter now, he registers, gives them information, but they were actually given exams to determine whether or not you were able to vote. And these exams were only given to people of color. And you were asked ridiculous questions, that you might not even know. They wouldn't even know the answer. But you had to answer this in order to qualify to vote, okay? And it scared a lot of people away, but even more came forward. And it showed not only that we were persistent, but it showed that we're not dumb, that we're not stupid, that we're educated, that we do know our rights, and that we do have our heritage. And we stood proud and were able to accomplish a lot of things by the vote. And not by burning up anything, but by the vote. Not by tearing down anything, but by the vote. Not being
And you made a good point on the not burning down. I remember in the 60s, even though I was younger, especially, I think Avondale was probably was that the center point of the movement? Because it seems like most of the stuff I heard or I remember from the 60s, the West End as well, but it seems like the fires were in Avondale and a lot of the...
Most of the things that happened in Avondale, I wasn't a witness to. I was in the Marine Corps at that time. During the Vietnam War, I joined the Marine Corps 51 years ago. And so I wasn't on the scene when a lot of that broke out.
But I do know Avondale was probably one of the focal point or one of the focal neighborhoods. So what did the SCLC, we're just coming out of the midterms, right? So obviously that's voting, that's the election, it's trying to get politicians, people in the seats that are going to work toward, I'm going to say our effort. We know that there are many that were working towards something that did not benefit us and definitely wasn't designed for us. But what did the SCLC do this past election? Were you all involved in the election in any way?
Definitely. Mainly, we decided to go out after the unregistered voters. Okay, those who didn't care one way or another, showing them that they should care one way or another. And I think basically the elections this year have shown that there has been an awakening in our communities because the nonchalance attitude and the things are not going to change that got the present regime in office is basically something that we have to be very conscious of, and we no longer can stand on the sideline being spectators. We have to get into the game. And so the SCLC basically has a voters' rights movement going, and we're also registering more voters than you can ever imagine because the power of the pen is something that we can't ignore.
So real quick, because we have a couple of minutes, if someone wants to get involved or they need to get more information, they want to reach out to the SCLC, how do they do that?
Right now, you would get in touch with the SCLC. We're located in our building, the Village, at 3060 Durrell 45207 at in Evanston. Also, we meet every fourth Monday, and we'll be having a special meeting this coming Monday at our building where we'll be discussing the Emancipation Proclamation service as well as activities for the remainder of the year as we go into 2019, celebrating the fact that we've been here 400 years. 400
years. So we'll also make sure that you have the information that'll be up on the screen so that you know how to reach out to get involved. You can call and get information on membership or anything of that nature. Get involved. Listen, if you don't get involved and you sit on the sideline, then don't complain when stuff don't work out the way that you think it should work out. If you're not willing to put some skin in the game, then don't complain when the game doesn't go the way that you want it to go. Listen, again, I'm Pastor Jackie Jackson. We want to thank you again for tuning in to your Faith and Health community. Until the next time we meet together, stay faithful and please stay healthy.